And welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Martin False. And you know, as always, we try to get council business in, and we always interview the chair. We have a new chair of the Terrebonne Parish Council, Councilwoman Jessica Domingue. Her district is District 5, but she's the chairwoman now. First of all, congratulations. What an honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it's a lot of people, you know, there's still some people that think being a council person is pretty easy work. I suggest you follow one around for a week. It gets pretty involved, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And then now that I've taken this new role on as chairperson, you know, I'm essentially the department head of the entire council. And so, you know, we have to take care of the day-to-day operations of our council staff and our office. And so there's a lot that goes into it, not just taking the calls of constituents and working on all the projects that we're working on. So it's a lot of work for a part-time job.
And the agenda, you set the agenda, right?
Yes, sir. We set the agendas. We approve everything that goes on to our agenda, and so it, like I said, it is a lot.
And this is something that I know makes you proud because you got to get the majority vote. We all know that majority vote sometimes is very fleeting. It's very hard to get, and but I know you felt good that the majority of people wanted you on board. What would you like to see different? What is Jessica Domingue going to do, not only as a person, but as a chairwoman, to try to, everybody has their own direction they want to put things in. What's your direction?
So I don't think it's any I don't think it's any secret, Martin, that we've been very split. You know, we've had a split council for the last 3 years, and so I really hope to be able to bring some of the council members together. You'll see that with some of my appointments that I made, some appointments that you probably wouldn't think that I would have made. However, I just feel like it's really important that we have some sort of continuity across the board, and so that we can go out this last year as a whole rather than a separate council. So I've been really working on doing those things. The other thing that you'll notice as well is our actual agendas. I switched things up a little bit just because I feel as though a council meeting is our meeting. And so a lot of the staff things and a lot of the parish president reports and things are very, very important. However, if a council person puts something on the agenda, then that's something that's passionate to their constituents, and that's what your constituents are waiting to watch. So in the past, we've had those agenda items at the very end of the agendas, and so you may have to wait 3 hours through a meeting to actually hear what you want, what you're passionate about. So I've flipped that around, and so I went ahead and put all of the council member agendas at the very front of the agenda. That way we can have those discussions up front, and then we could do all the administrative things at the end.
That's a pretty good move, 'cause I never knew if that was something that was just in the bylaws or whatever, but I guess every chair sets the agenda. You can maneuver it the way you want to, right?
Yes, sir. So every chair has that opportunity, and it was like that years ago. I think even before the Dove administration, it was like that, and then over time it was switched, and I just not sure why it wasn't put back. And so that was the first thing that I did. The very first day that I went ahead and accepted this new responsibility is we went ahead and reset that agenda that way. I just felt like that's really why people want to see those meetings, is to see the things that they're really passionate about. And so that was one of the most important things to me.
I think you're right, because a lot of people, I've been covering council meetings since the 80s, and we used to have big crowds at the council meeting because I think you're right. The meat and potatoes was up front, but the more people had to wait and wait and wait, and you don't want to be getting out of the council chambers at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So we'll see how that works out. Let me ask you, though, you made a good point. You're trying to, I guess for lack of a better term, give an olive branch. You put some people on committees that y'all weren't always on the same side, but it's your effort to bring a divided council together, because for the longest that I can remember, it's been divided. So I'm sure you're having many behind-the-scenes talks to try to do this and try to present a nicer package to Terrebonne Parish.
I am, and I'm focused on what's next, and I'm focused on moving into the future. And it's President Dove's last year. And so he'll be out. We'll have a new administration. We'll have a new parish president. Hopefully I'm still around. Hopefully some of my fellow council members are still around. But we will have a new council. And so it's going to be an opportunity to move forward. And we need to work together. We have, as you know, hundreds of millions of dollars that are about to come into Terrebonne Parish, and we cannot be split on the decisions that we make for the betterment of our parish. And so I think that it's so important for us to set that foundation now, so that we can move forward into the years to come. So that's really my goal this year.
All right. What we'll do, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back. We'll spend a couple of more segments with Ms. Domingue. We'll talk about, there's a vice chair. We'll talk about who got appointed there. She mentioned the millions of dollars that will be coming to Terrebonne Parish, which they have a bunch of control over, so we'll talk about that and some different things. And if you notice, Jessica made a change too on our presentation. She goes, I don't want to go through this agenda item by item, because, well, some of it we can't talk about because it's executive session, and other things, to be quite honest, we all agree, or pretty mundane and boring. You're just approving things that you got to approve. So I promise you, if we have anything big on these agendas, we'll talk about it. But we wanted you really to sit, you know her, but we wanted you to know her as the chairwoman. We're talking with Council Chairwoman Jessica Domingue, and certainly it's an honor for her to be elected. And it's a big task, because you got to work with all kinds of people. Like she said, there's going to be millions of dollars coming into Terrebonne Parish. Parish President Gordon Dove does have another year to service in Terrebonne. Then there's a general election, and of course that's going to be interesting also. Got a few names in the hat already, and too early to come out and start talking about it because, quote, they're not official. But if you're around politics in Terrebonne Parish, they're pretty official. But as a station, we're going to wait till they are all official. Then I'm going to get them all on this desk together. That's going to be fun.
That'll be
I already
fun.
told them that. And they all agreed. They said, yeah. I said, I don't, that also baffles me, why you can't have elections in any parish and get 4 or 5 people that actually respect the other person. One day I just want to go cover somebody winning an election and have the other candidates go to the party and wish them luck. I'll wait for the day, okay? All right, so let's talk about your vice chair.
Okay.
John Amadei
Yes.
is your vice chair. And John's no stranger to public service. His wife's been a state legislator for many years. So I'm sure in the household, they talk a lot of politics. They talk a lot of what can help the parish. And what's your talks with John at this point?
Well, John and I have been friends for many, many years. Before we even both took office, we both actually came into this together at the same time. And so he's been, really helpful with, this process of setting the agenda and with making the appointments. And we have that really good working relationship. And so we've been able to have a lot of discussions about what do we feel is best for the parish moving forward. And so that's been really exciting to work with him on those things.
What can y'all do as a dynamic duo? Let's say the dynamic duo that I could pull up tapes from these archives. Back in the day when they had, seemed like 15, or, it was always a split. It's always, as far as back as I can remember, 5-4, 5-4, 5-4, 5-4. And I long for the day when everybody can vote individually on every topic coming your way. And I know you've said that before, and it's probably one of your goals is just to get everybody thinking independent on every issue that comes out there. So I guess re-education would be a key thing, and probably the chair and the vice chair working closely together to try to get everybody to vote for your constituents.
Well, Martin, we really haven't been split on much. If you look at the tape and you look at our minutes of our meetings, with the exception of the vote for the council chair, we really have voted together on most items for moving the parish forward in the betterment. And you have to think, too, we've been in crisis for the first 2.5 years. And so there wasn't a whole lot of wiggle room for us to argue and to not get along, because we had to move things forward because we had COVID and we had Ida and we had all these crises. So really, we haven't been split as far as the vote. Now, there's been split as far as politics and discussions, but if our voting record, we really do vote together on most things.
And maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's the personalities that are so powerful that it makes you think that everything's sort of a big fight. How can you, and I know you're going to try, you've said it many times. I guess the first thing that we talked about in the first segment is just sort of smoothing the personalities out to where everybody thinks of just the betterment of Terrebonne Parish.
Correct, yes. And just hopefully we can respect each other in the meetings, and we can be, respectful and stop the arguing and stop the, I don't want to say pettiness because that's the wrong word, but just, stop that hostility in the meetings, because those conversations should happen before the meeting. Whenever we go into the meeting, we should already know where we want to be. We should already know where we're sitting, and we should just take the vote. Those other conversations, they really need to happen beforehand. And so hopefully we're able to limit that as much as possible, and we don't allow for that to happen. And as chairwoman, I will be working towards being able to keep control of the meeting a little bit more. And so I just hope that we can all remain respectful of each other.
That is a good point about getting, it's really senseless sometimes to go to the general meeting and have big discussions when it's all been worked out already. But once again, I think we get back to personalities who, look, I get it. I think everybody wants to let their constituents know, hey, I'm fighting for you, I'm fighting for you, I'm fighting for you, but do it in a statesman or stateswomanly-like fashion. And I think what somebody used to always brand in my head, you catch more flies with honey, huh? Yeah. So, I mean, I think maybe an overhaul is in line, and we're really pulling for you and John and everybody on the council to sort of see that realization. But it's we know it'll take work, but looks like you're ready for it, huh?
Yeah, and it's after the conversations that I've had in the last few weeks, we all, the majority of us, are ready to move forward, and we're ready to work as one unit to move ourselves into whatever the future holds for us. So that is the general consensus of everyone, is that it's time for us to move on.
Okay. So with that said, since we got that out the way, we're going to come back to segment 3. Let's talk about some things that the chairwoman thinks are important to Terrebonne Parish that maybe need to be driven home in the next couple of years, because like she said, we have millions of dollars coming in. What are some of the important projects that need to be done in Terrebonne Parish? What's your hope? Where would you like to see the projects go, and what would you like to see accomplished?
Well, we've got a long way to go. I mean, our recovery is just beginning, as you know, and this is not going to happen overnight. We're looking at least a 10 or 20-year recovery process to get back to whatever normal is, and I don't even know what normal is anymore. However, our consultant, CSRS, and I know you've heard that acronym said many times, they're going to have our disaster master plan finished and finalized in March. And so they'll be presenting that to council, and then once they present that to council, that's whenever we will be able to go after disaster funds from FEMA and from other entities as well, so that we can start that recovery process. And the reason why this was so important is these FEMA and the Red Cross and these big entities that provide this disaster funding, they don't just give a check to anyone. So they're going to give the highest amount and the highest amount of reimbursement to the municipalities that are best prepared. And so that's why we've been doing all this back work for the last year and a half, is so that we could be best prepared for whenever they are on their way. And as you know, we haven't received any FEMA dollars yet. It's, I mean, I hear it in the public, oh, they've got all this money. We haven't gotten any money
That's
yet.
absolutely correct.
We had to take a loan out to be able to cover some of our bills and our expenses that we occurred whenever the disaster first started. I mean, we had to continue with our government. We had a lot of things that needed to happen immediately. However, we haven't been reimbursed from FEMA for anything yet. And so once they are, we're going to be best prepared to get as much as we can to bring back into Terrebonne Parish.
It's almost like, for lack of a better word, an accreditation, all the preparatory work that you're trying to get done. So when they come in, you slot them the booklet and they go, oh, they got it together.
Right, but CSRS, they will be with us the entire process. I mean, they're going to take care of that. I mean, this job is too big for one person. This job is, I mean, they need a team of people, and so hopefully they're with us through the entire process to be able to submit those applications, to be able to help us distribute those funds, and to help us really be able to come up with a plan for our parish that's going to fit our needs the most and move us forward. You know, we've got a housing crisis. I actually went to 2 housing meetings today, looking at different ways that we can, you know, expand our housing opportunities. So we have that. We had a housing crisis before the storm, and now we've really got a housing crisis. So I think, number one, that might be the biggest obstacle that we have coming out the gate. But you know, there's just so much. I mean, we've got infrastructure problems. We have, you know, our roads and our lights and everything needs to be fixed. So it's not going to happen overnight.
And we have insurance problems.
And we have
getting insurance. Yeah.
Right? I mean, you know, imagine how long it took for you to wait for your insurance to pay you for your house. Now think about the government. We know how slow they are, and so times what you had to wait by 10. I mean, that's really how government works, and this doesn't happen overnight. And I always hear people say, well, why can't y'all just do this? Well, yeah, we could, but we would bankrupt the parish, and so we're trying to be fiscally conservative as well. And yeah, we've got a budget, but our budget has already been planned, and so we've got to stick within the confines of our budget. We just can't pull $1 million out, $1 million here, $1 million there to say, oh, we're going to fix lights or we're going to fix roads, because it all has to be allocated to something. And so we're doing things the correct way so that we won't bankrupt the government, which is really, really important. I mean, we don't need a mess on our hands, especially going into a new administration.
You're dealing with a crisis, but you got to be fiscally responsible at the same time.
Correct.
And you got to make sure you put the cart before the horse. And I get it because of some of the insurance claims that I've had settled. I still got 2 buildings on the side that I'm still waiting, and you can't really do anything because then it becomes a situation where it's a wait and see thing. So there's so many people in this community that haven't heard or that are still fighting it. So you're right, it just takes a long time, and we just hope we've seen the last, like Ida.
Oh,
Because that was a deadly bullet.
Yeah, I hope we never see something like this again, but we may, and if we do, we need to be prepared for it.
Well, I know we have less trees in the parish
Yes, we
because
do.
of Ida. That's for doggone sure. And but no, with about a minute left, I know you're excited, and I know you're excited to get the ball rolling in a different direction. So
Yes,
once-
and Martin, one thing I want to mention too is this week you'll actually notice that we are not going to be holding our council meetings in our chambers. We'll be at the school board office. We're having a complete overhaul of our media system. So I know a lot of people complain they can't hear us. They can't. I mean, it's a fuzzy video feed, and so we're going to have all new audio. It's going to be state of the art. It's going to be really, really wonderful. And before anybody asks how we're paying for this, this is being paid by the Federal Communications Commission. I wrote all this down. It's called PEG funds. They're public education governmental. So basically, the federal government has to provide government entities with the ability to stream or to provide the public their feed of their meetings. And so it is federal dollars, and it's not coming out of our budget, and it's not coming out of TPCG's budget. This is actually federal dollars that they provide to all government entities.
All right, there you have it. The chairwoman of Terrebonne Parish Council, Ms. Jessica Domingue. We'll see her again next time around. We'll see you again after a short break.